Forget is that publishing is still basically artisanal. It's not industrial. It's industrial only because the big industries have bought it. But in France, for instance, there are small publishers that can publish a book of 1,000 copies and break even. So the original idea of publishing, which was that you need only two people, the author and the publisher, is still valid. And you don't need a huge conglomerate. You don't need huge amounts of money. You can do it in this artisanal way. The problem with the internet is that it's very hard to do it on the internet because of the difficulties I mentioned earlier. If you have a small public that you can reach easily, then you can do it. And that's what happened in America with the university presses. Because of the problem I mentioned earlier about the high cost of the journals published by these monopoly publishers, the university libraries no longer had any money because they had to buy all the journals. So that the average university press book in America used to sell 1,200 copies. Now, 10 years later, they sell 350 copies, which is not possible. So what Robert Darnton, the great historian of publishing in America, suggested is that the universities begin to publish online, and then anyone who wants the book can get it for free. And he persuaded some big foundations to help to pay for that. And so now more and more the university monographs are published that way. But that's very easy. You know who your public is, right? You have at most 1,000 libraries throughout the world, you know, and you can tell them, okay, here's a new book in early Greek classics or whatever. If you want to just download it, and then they do so. So that system works very well. But if you're publishing a novel, you have no idea who to tell, and you don't have the money to do it either. So the system can work very well for very targeted audiences. The problem is overall is that the battle now in the internet world, as you know better than I, is for control of distribution. We've just published an interesting book which you may want to read in English called Digital Democracy. And it's a study of all the debates that are going on in Washington over the future of the digital networks. Because the groups that control the media, Time Warner and others, want to control access to the net. They want to be able to give better service for the people who pay them, not so good service for the others. And they would like to have a two-tiered system, one of which makes a lot of money and the other which gets second treatment, as in everything else. And the battle now in the American Congress is, will these lobbies succeed? And that's the story we don't know yet, and what the answer will be. But the problem basically is the same people, as I was saying earlier, who have always controlled the new media are now trying equally hard to control access to the internet. And in addition to that, of course, the battle is not simply the diffusion of information, it's the gathering of data which will help you advertise more effectively. So that each of these providers now has a dossier on you that tells them exactly, from what you look at, who you are, what to sell to you, when to do so, and so on. And the ideal of these people, which is very smart, they know how to make money, is that in time, with GPS and other systems, they can telephone on your mobile when you're walking down the street and say, you're about to reach a Starbucks, it's very hot, don't you want to stop and get a nice coffee? So that's the idea behind the whole thing, is once you can control access to the customer and you know what they want, you can make a vast amount of money. Now it's still very primitive, you know. The large companies will buy your grocery bill from the grocery chain, and they'll see what you buy. So they'll say, oh, you use this soap powder, why don't you use that soap powder? That's very primitive. That's very old-fashioned, even though it's much ahead of what we now know. This new control of the technology, which is what the battle is about, will give people who want to advertise and pay the most money incredible access to the information and to the specific pinpointed customer.